So this presentation explores the artwork Machine in the Middle that I made in 2021 with Nathan Semertzidis, a brain-computer interface researcher. And the artwork and also this presentation discuss the perhaps unintended consequences of the increasing integration between humans and machines. The artwork involves a brain-computer interface and various other components that I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail. But first of all, what I'd like to do is to talk through the research space that this artwork and computer science experiment occupies. And to do that, we're going to take a bit of a journey through fig wasps to world snooker champion Steve Davis. So the broader context for this project is the ongoing integration that humans and computers have been engaged in since at least the 1940s, when Norbert Wiener first coined the term cybernetics. And the theoretical canon of human-computer integration often describes this ongoing merger as a form of emerging mutual symbiosis. So J.C.R. Licklider, in his seminal paper, Man-Computer Symbiosis, begins with a description of the way that a fig tree exists in a symbiotic relationship with a small wasp of the Blastophaga species. And the insect larva lives in the figs, and the fig tree relies on the insect to pollinate its fruit. Licklider's intended point is both parties benefit. There's a kind of mutualism, and he takes this as a paradigm for the way in which all computer symbiosis will take place. His paper continues this theme throughout, and he continues with the assumption that, like the fig tree, any symbiosis with computational machines will be beneficial to both parties and will be a kind of mutualistic symbiosis or a form of mutualism. And subsequently, many other researchers have followed along this assumption as well, saying things like integration implies partnership. These papers omit the fact that in nature there are other types of symbiotic relationships, as well as mutualistic symbiosis, where both parties or both organisms benefit. There's also commensalistic symbiosis, where one organism benefits and the other one kind of remains largely unaffected. And also the very common, well-known parasitic symbiosis, where one organism benefits whilst the other suffers. And in biology, even predation, where one organism dies to benefit the other, is considered a form of symbiosis. So Licklider's analogy and assumption is very focused on one very particular form of symbiosis. And this presentation questions these assumptions and argues that, in fact, perhaps parasitic symbiosis in human-computer interaction, where the machine benefits but the human does not, is far more common than Licklider might have ever imagined back in 1960. There are plenty of examples of what mutualistic machine symbiosis might look like. So, for example, digital voice assistants that learn as they respond. We obviously benefit from their enlarged vocabulary and understanding. The machine benefits from having a larger vocabulary and understanding. But what about examples of parasitic symbiosis with machines? Well, you don't really need to look any further than generative AI or machine learning, which is inherently parasitical on human-created art and literature. The generative system, of course, benefits from all of the human endeavor, whilst the human creators are either sidelined or replaced. So this is a truly parasitic relationship. So Nathan and I's artwork, Machine in the Middle, explores this idea of a parasitic symbiosis with machines. And it takes as its starting point a particular type of cyber attack called a machine in the middle cyber attack, or sometimes known as a man in the middle cyber attack. And this is actually quite a good example of parasitic symbiosis. In a machine in the middle attack, there are three parties. Two people communicating with each other through a machinic or computational system, and a machine that is covertly intercepting their communication. And in this type of cyber attack, the victims lose control of their ability to communicate unhindered. Machine in the middle attacks are implemented through the interception and decryption of the communication between those two people, which denies them agency and also control of their communication. The machine literally is in the middle between them. It takes control of their communication to the detriment of both parties. Machine in the middle attacks are structurally parasitic, and our artwork uses this as a deliberately provocative paradigm to explore this increasingly intimate relationship with technology that we have. It inverts the normal understanding of HCI, where the human subject is in control. Instead, we place the machine in control. So in our version of Machine in the Middle, the two people communicating are in fact the same person, the brain and the face of the same person, and in this case belonging to snooker world champion Steve Davis. The machine sits between his brain and his face, and it decrypts the communication from his brain to his face. It intercepts it and it re-engineers it. To do this, we use a brain-computer interface and electrical muscle stimulation, or EMS, to separate Steve's brain and his facial expressions. The intercepted communication is Steve's EEG brainwaves using an open BCI headset, you can see here, with electrodes. All of these blue things are electrodes, and custom software that runs wirelessly through this unit here. The target of the interception is Davis's emotional state. So we've used custom software to determine an approximation of his emotional state from his EEG brainwaves, and then transpose that onto his face using electrical muscle stimulation pads. So we are actually animating the muscles in his face to match the response from the machine. Our prototype system removes Steve's control of his own facial expressions and tasks the software with manipulating his face to reveal his emotional state. The machine is in the middle between his brain and his facial expression, creating a feedback loop between subject and machine. Machine in the Middle is an artwork, a computer science experiment in affective computing, and a speculative hypothesis for human-computer integration. As such, it sits between the fields of conceptual art and computer science, and it speculates on what the frontier of human-computer integration might look like when it is pushed back even further. And it identifies a dark path in the designing of symbiotic systems that may be best described as parasitic, as we previously discussed.